Jill of the Jungle is a simple DOS-era platformer. It was distributed as 3 episodes, all of which are legally free to download and play via GOG. So you might be asking, what has this game done to merit an hour-long Iceberg video? Objectively, nothing. There's nothing terribly noteworthy about this game, other than it's just the game that I grew up with. This video exists mainly because no one was around to stop me. The Jill of the Jungle Iceberg, which I totally found on the deep web and didn't make myself, has 6 tiers. At the top of the iceberg we have the most surface level aspects of the game, and as we go down, the topics get increasingly more obscure, unknown, and likely entirely made up. Tier 1. The Jungle. At the top of the iceberg we have the first 3 episodes. Episode 1 is self-entitled and contains almost no story. You basically move A to B and win. Episode 2, Jill Goes Underground, has a bit more story. However, the story is basically the title. Jill Goes Underground, that's it. Jill 3, Jill Saves the Prince, again sums up its story via the title. In this episode, Jill must save the prince from Lizard Jail. Yes, Lizard Jail. There's additional story peppered throughout the games, but no deep lore. It's mostly 90s era memes. We are given some backstory on the jungle, something about lizards bulldozing the jungle down to erect a shopping mall or something like that, but it's possible I imagined that. Gameplay-wise, Jill jumps around and attacks with knives and throwing stars. Additionally, Jill can transform into several animals, a fish who swims and shoots bullets, yes bullets, a phoenix who flies and shoots fireballs, and a frog that jumps and leaps. While the menu suggests that those are 2 different abilities, they are in fact the same. That's basically all 3 games in a nutshell. They are simple games which have aged reasonably well for a DOS-era platformer, and if you plow through some of the vintage retro scuff, they're actually pretty fun. The highlights for me are probably the graphics and the Sound Blaster compatible soundtrack. Alright, now with all the boring basics out of the way, we can go deeper. Tier 2. Going Underground. Xargon. The developers of Jill, Epic Mega Games, made a similar game called Xargon, which I view as the spiritual successor of Jill. Xargon is also an episodic DOS-era platformer with similar gameplay and music, though, of course, featuring a different protagonist. The setting of Xargon conveys sort of a Saturday morning fantasy cartoon vibe, kinda like He-Man or something. Though this game isn't on GOG, all 3 episodes can be found for free across the internet. Its commercial release and source code were made available for free by its developers several years back. Onesimus. Alright, I have a ton to say about this game, I feel like. Probably far too much. As Epic Mega Games was developing Jill, they licensed out Jill's engine to a Christian game developer named Arc Multimedia. With Jill's engine, they published a minor reskinning of Jill, telling the story of Onesimus, a runaway 1st century slave. This game is kind of trash, to be honest. The first 2 levels are original designs, but the remaining levels are recycled Jill levels. Jill's transformation ability was removed entirely, and the levels which relied on that mechanic were rerouted in boring and lazy ways. The devs tried to force the story onto the player via long, unskippable text dialogues, making sure the player gets their daily dose of Bible. Because the dialogues are triggered by specific, unassuming health bonuses, eventually I learned to avoid health bonuses altogether. because I'd rather die and replay a level than read. Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. Nothing about this game feels like an honest attempt to make a video game. It just kind of feels like they repurposed the first game they could license, similar to like all the soulless asset flips that you find in the Google Play Store today. Some of their redesigns are hilariously bad, such as the reskinning of Jill's flying fire-breathing demons into flying fire-breathing human rogues. There's also a lot of bizarre theming, like you can't have Jill's fun transformation mechanic, but you can have Onesimus visiting a freaking ice castle. You know, like in the Bible. Oh, you don't remember when Onesimus visited Elsa in the Bible? I don't either, but I'm glad it's there, because it's kind of entertaining. Either way, the game ends with a cutscene. After Paul leads Onesimus to salvation, he promptly sends him back to a slave owner, Philemon. Is that really how this story ends? Damn, what an asshole. Strange box art. A lot of retro games feature box art that comes off as a bit disconnected from its source. I assume this is because it was once common to hire a third-party company to make the box art for your game, and these people usually had never played your game and never would play your game, but they would certainly draw stuff like this, and this, and honestly, I'm kinda sad that that's gone. It was a different time, I guess, unbothered by branding and human proportions, but we can still enjoy it today, thanks to the internet. Jill has had a few releases, and these are their box arts. I like this cat. I kinda wish it appeared in the game in some form. Jill's making the exact same pose, but she's green now. If she had swapped outfits with the previous Jill, this would almost be consistent with the games. I kinda see what they were going for. Jill saves the prince, the princess and the frog, the prince is a frog. I can't fault them for making that connection, however, the prince is not, nor has ever been, a frog. This is the art for the bundle, which contains all 3 episodes. It's probably the best one. It doesn't really have the clip art vibe of the last ones. It's actually a legit drawing, and it conveys the vibe of the game pretty well. There are a few other covers for international releases. Some of them are kinda goofy looking, but others are pretty legit. The Pointless Stage 1 Secret. Episode 1, Level 1 has a strange secret where you fall into this hidden pit, go around the exit, and into this building. As far as I can tell, there's no point in this. No bonuses, no shortcuts, nothing. If you stand on this platform, however, the entrance to the secret closes. I assume the secret is just for flavor, but later we may get into some theories around it. Vinyl Goddess from Mars. It's like Jill, but smuttier. Legend has it that Vinyl was a proper sequel to Jill, however Tim, the head cheese at Epic Mega Games, wasn't completely sold on its quality. So he had it published as its own thing under a different publisher. This game's alright, but I kinda see Tim's point. It's jankier, frustrating, and its visuals and sound design just aren't as charming as Jill. I replayed the first level for this footage here, and I was consistently annoyed how the enemies are all at the perfect height to miss most of my projectiles. That's very thoughtful. epic cameos. Throughout Jill are little cameos for other stuff by Epic Mega Games. Likewise, a few other Epic Mega Games have little cameos for Jill. The main two I can think of are Epic Pinball's Jill theme board and this episode header for Jackrabbit. Interlocking Levels. My favorite little touch to Episode 1 is how some of the levels are interconnected with other levels. In some parts of the game, you'll cross paths with bonuses and items which are inaccessible. Later in the game, you may notice those inaccessible locations were actually segments of future levels. This is most apparent in 2 pairs of connected levels, but there's some other subtle examples. Some levels occupy the same file, but their connection is only apparent if you use a level editor, and we will show more of that later. JPP. Throughout Jill, its devs have left signatures pretty much everywhere. Tim's name, of course, is on every other level. However, my favorite hidden dev signature is JPP's. John Pallet Plowright worked on the art for Jill, and his signature can be found on Episode 3, Level 3. To see it, you have to all but complete the level, and then backtrack to the other side of the map with the bird. These are all things most Jill fans would already know. However, the next tier of useless information is for those who have dove deeper. Let us explore the depths of heck. Tier 3. Heck. Alright, I'm not self-censoring, it's literally called heck in the game, so that's what the tier's called. Duplicating knives. Jill can hold up to 3 knives, which is also the max amount ever available to the player in any given map. However, you can get a 4th through a glitch. I'm not sure on the specifics, but if you spam attack while retrieving a knife, sometimes they duplicate. This is easiest if you have 3 knives already, but it may be possible with fewer. Knives over the max 3 can't be held in your inventory, so they just kind of float down to the ground. Additionally, there seems to be something strange about the knife pickup on Episode 1, Level 3. Playing the level normally, the second knife pickup gives you 2 knives instead of 1 for unknown reasons. However, stranger still, if you lose the first knife you were given before picking up the second knife pickup, the second knife pickup only gives you 1 knife. Looking at the level in the editor shows there's nothing special about the pickup, nor are there 2 pickups overlapping each other. This is just strange behavior. It could have something to do with the save points, but I'm not sure. There may be additional instances of this happening. Controlling cutscenes. Episode 1 and 2 feature a scripted ending cutscene which you can disrupt just before they end, gaining you control over Jill, allowing you to explore areas usually inaccessible to you. If you hold left or right on the final jump, you can redirect Jill's final jump into the scene transition trigger, and now you can explore freely. Episode 1 definitely has the most interesting area to explore. Here you can jump off the mushroom and slide around the void to the left and right, which looks kind of funny. In episode 2, it just has a single closed room to explore. Additionally, for some reason, you can press Ctrl and P on the title screen, and you can move Jill around on the title screen. This works on all 3 episodes, plus Onesimus. Waterfall Meditation. I'm unsure if this is a bug or a feature, but on episode 3, level 3, up the waterfall after the bird transformation, there's a special apple which releases the frame cap, boosting the speed of your game until you restart from DOS. While this is probably a good thing for speedrunners, it makes the game nearly impossible to play. There's nothing like this in the rest of the game, and looking at the objects in a level editor, I'm not really seeing any reason why this would trigger this effect, so I guess it's just a mystery. Float jump. I'm guessing the flag which enables the player to jump must be bound to a particular frame of animation, because when Jill appears on the board, even if she is in the air, for a specific frame she is allowed to jump. This allows us to reach certain areas out of sequence and certain out-of-bound areas. XXX. Upon pressing X 3 times, this debugging code gives Jill an otherwise unattainable item, the shield, as well as a key, and also refilling your health. The shield will make you invulnerable to most damage sources. ZZZ. Jill contains several debug displays, one of which is activated by pressing Z 3 times. When enabled, it displays a number in the inventory menu. This number may be the remaining RAM after loading the level's assets, but I'm not sure. It changes from map to map and usually stays constant, though sometimes it flickers back and forth between 2 numbers. Escape Eternal Weirdness. Episode 2, The Land of Eternal Weirdness, contains one of the few out-of-bound glitches. Navigate to the near end of the level and position these elevators just so. Then use the bird to navigate all the way back to the start. These tiles here have no collision, so you are allowed to escape the level. Outside the level, there's this strange frame with an unknown purpose. When you're done exploring, you can exit the level by re-entering from above. Invisible blocks. In episode 3, there's a level featuring strange invisible blocks around the starting area. Some of them are easy to stand on, and some are only noticeable by jumping towards deadly spikes, something you usually wouldn't do. Inspecting these tiles in a level editor reveals that these might be a mistake. Most empty tiles are indexed at 0, while these invisible blocks have an index of 1, which is also a black tile. It's possible there are more tiles like this throughout the game, but they have not been discovered yet. Later, I discovered another invisible block in that same level. I did not know about this one until literally just now. the Demon's Hideout. Now, we are leaving the perceivable reality and are now diving into that which can only be gleaned by those who explore Jill's code. This is the Demon's Hideout. Jill Edit, Lost Media. In 1994, roughly 2 years after Jill's release, an obscure software company named Fisher Software released an editor for Jill. This editor was published in 2 versions. The free version, version 1.0, has many features disabled, and the paid version allegedly functions as a full-fledged Jill editor. While the free version of Jill Edit is easy to find, this paid version, Jill Edit 2.0, has yet to become readily available on the internet. Version 2.0 was only available to those who ordered the software by mail back in 1994. As the company is now defunct, there's really no possible way to get it now. Though it is possible version 2.0 is entirely lost, there's also a chance there's a floppy with version 2.0 somewhere out there. Zoo.jn1. Among the files included with Jill Edit 1.0 is a file named zoo.jn1. This was intended to be a sample of what you could create with version 2.0 of the editor. When this file is swapped with a specific file in Jill's game directory and renamed, it becomes playable. This level serves as a showcase of each object type in Jill, even featuring unused and unfinished content. It's also interesting to note that otherwise unplayable levels become playable by renaming certain files. Episode 1 features demos of levels from Episode 2 and 3, which play automatically without user input. Normally, when a button is pressed in the demo, you are returned to the menu, so you can't play these normally. But by renaming these files, you can play these levels without interruption. While one would think this would be a good way to play non-shareware levels while only owning the free sharewared episode, this isn't really a viable way to play these levels. These demo levels contain triggers which return Jill to the demo hub and are pretty much unavoidable, skipping the end of each demo level. Additionally, some levels are not even playable because Jill's spawn isn't set correctly. However, using this method, you can play levels from Episode 2 and 3 wearing Jill's outfit from Episode 1. Playing the demo hub doesn't really illuminate anything interesting, however playing Episode 1's ending cutscene is pretty funny. You can fly above the starting location and load in the second copy of Jill, which is used for cutscene. You can also copy over the unique levels from Onesimus, allowing you to play them as Jill and with Jill's tile sets, though this sign still gives me pretty bad vibes. You can glitch Jill into Onesimus's map, which is really bizarre to look at. You can also explore Onesimus's ending cutscene as Jill. Wonder how that will look with Jill graphics. Oh dear. I think I broke it.
Welcome, Onesimus. I am Paul, the apostle of Jesus. Paul, what must I do to be saved? You must believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. Onesimus responds to Paul, I believe.
Try that again.
I believe. Onesimus, you have discovered true freedom. Now I send you back to Philemon because I'm a dick. Godspeed, brother. Godspeed.
I'm back. Halfway through. CMF. CMF stands for Creative Music Format. This is a music format that is similar to MIDI, but instead of relying on an external generic synthesized instrument bank, CMF allows custom-defined instruments to be included in the file itself. This allows for music with much more specialized and unique sounds. Can you tell I just had some tea? This is the music format Jill uses for its soundtrack, which is why it has such a unique sound. Additionally, Xargon and Vinyl also use the same format. In my quest to obtain a Jill OTS, I wanted the soundtrack on its highest quality. Recording directly from DOSBox unfortunately does not cut it, since emulation doesn't quite have the perfect compatibility that original hardware allows. For me, I don't have the original hardware anymore, unfortunately, so the best compromise I have is to use specific software to play back and convert the original files into, say, WAV files or MP3. This is kind of boring, isn't it? Foobar, for example, does this trick pretty well, with the help of some plugins. Maybe someday I will get myself an original Sound Blaster Pro, but this will do in the meantime. Here I'll also mention that the composer for Jill, Dan Froelich, had a website up at some point which featured HD MP3s of several Jill songs. These revisions featured higher quality synthesized instrument, which probably wouldn't fit very well on a floppy disk. These tracks may not be available nowadays because last I checked, Dan's domain had expired. Very unfortunate. built-in editor. While Jill Edit was a bust, there's another option, one that has been right in front of us this entire time. But it kind of sucks. By pressing Ctrl and E on the title screen of any episode of Jill, you can activate the editing mode. The functionality of this editor is not officially documented and is very cryptic. However, fans have written up a pretty good user guide to this mode's various features. I wouldn't use this though, for reasons that will quickly become apparent, so stay tuned on that. Paul is watching. This refers to all the cool things that you can see out of bounds, with the use of an editor, of course. The most interesting example is on episode 3, level 3. I don't think it is level 3. Is it level 3? I think it's level 2. I gotta double check this. 2. It's on level 2. The script is wrong. The most interesting example is on episode 3, level 2. This is the level Onesimus uses in its final level and ending cutscene. However, in Jill, we can see parts of this sequence from Onesimus have somehow been left in, though entirely inaccessible. All the text and all the special objects which make up that cutscene are still here. As a kid, I always kind of felt like there was something on top of this tower, and apparently, the Apostle Paul was up there this whole time, looming over me like Batman. Wild. This also shines a bit of light into the development of Jill and Onesimus. For this to be possible, Epic Megagames would have had to take Arc Multimedia's finished game and incorporate it back into Jill. I wonder if this means that Arc Multimedia actually made more original levels than I had previously thought. Maybe Jill copied Arc's levels instead of the other way around. However, I don't think that this is likely. This can't be true for all of Onesimus's recycled levels, as some levels were clearly made with the transformation ability in mind. Another theory says that Jill Episode 3 needed a graphic for the prince and imported and modified Onesimus's graphic to fill that requirement. In that process, Epic might have copied other assets over by accident. Other interesting out-of-bounds secrets are as follows. This example shows level 1 grouped together with level 16, an example of interconnected levels. Here we can see some blue clouds which are far too high to be seen by the player. One is even higher than the background. There's also an epic bonus up here for some reason. Here's another connected set of levels from episode 1. Here we might as well do our next topic, Moctezuma's empty rooms. In this editor we can see empty rooms in episode 2's second level, Moctezuma's castle. In-game, these rooms are visible towards the end of the level, but you can see even more empty rooms in the editor. It's unclear if these rooms were cut content or if the level designer simply ran out of ideas to fill the remaining space. Here we can see 2 more levels from episode 1. You can see the off-screen walls they used to keep the clouds from wandering off. The horizon effect is contiguous for both levels, hinting that they share a file. Here's another set of levels from episode 1. This one's almost apparent in-game from the end of Arc's dungeon and the start of level 9. There's also this long floor to the right. Maybe that was a partition for yet another level? Perhaps cut content? Probably not. Here we see 2 connected levels from episode 2. Here's another view of the strange frame in the land of eternal weirdness. Here we can see episode 3's ending sequence in the header of the final level. In the editor, it's interesting to note that the prince is named Paul, yet again probably related to the repurposed Onesimus assets. Here's episode 2's ending sequence, followed by episode 1's ending. The intro maps contain the title screen as well as the demo hubs, along with several menu screens. Episode 3 has no demo hub, and instead has this weird purple void. You can tell the file was copied and pasted from an earlier episode since the demo hub text and objects still exist. Here, I'm poking around the apple that speeds up your game, only to find nothing particularly different about it. But maybe I just don't know what to look for here. If you spot something different, let me know in the comments. It's worth mentioning that Onesimus reworks the useless secret from level 1. Instead of doing nothing, triggering this platform forms a bridge back to the path above the starting point, allowing you to reach some secret bonuses. Moving on to Onesimus, for some reason there's some overworld tiles over here. These may be just for a tile set test. Even though these tiles are included in Jill's assets, they're never used. Here we have an interesting secret from a Onesimus level. In Jill, this area is just a death pit. Onesimus's map has an unused section above the castle. This section was probably meant to house the entrances to level 10 through 12, but for the final version, they moved the entrances back inside this castle. This castle looks kinda sad, but I'm kinda glad that you don't have to backtrack so far to reach the levels. Here are a few quick views of other zoom outs of various levels. Jmod. The best way to edit and view Jill levels is not through Jill Edit, nor through the in-game editor, but through another editor known as Jmod. This is the editor I used to show the out-of-bounds stuff in the last segment. Jmod was created in 2018 by King Duke. Honestly, it's fantastic. It's everything I wanted out of a Jill editor. You should check it out if you can. The link is in the description. Open Jill. This refers to an unfinished fan project which aims to reconstruct Jill in Java. It's missing a lot of key features which make it a viable option for playing Jill, but it's still an interesting project. Jill.mod. This is a stand-in for all the fan-made art and music created by various Jill fans. Jill.mod is a mod music track that features a neat beat and sound effects from Jill. There's also a Xargon track as well, by the same artist I believe. Episode 4. This is a fan project made by Rhubar. It's a fantastic full episode of new levels that really captures the original charm of Jill's level design. Definitely check this out, link in the description. Jail. Here at the lowest tip of the iceberg, we have the content that will never see the light of day. Here we have all the unfinished features and beta content Jill has to offer. Acid Rain Clouds. This one's a reach, honestly. I kind of considered putting this one in the tier below, but I put it here instead. These little blue clouds are indeed used in a few of Jill's levels. However, their full functionality may have originally been something different. The manual mentions that these are acid rain clouds. It's possible these were originally intended to rain down damaging rain onto the player at some point. At some point, this idea might have been scrapped and the clouds were instead used as decoration. Or maybe the manual was just talking nonsense. As we soon shall see, that's probably the truth. Coin bag. Within the code of Jill is an inventory item called a coin bag. It's possible this is a scrapped item with unknown use, or it's possible that it's another carryover from Onesimus. In Onesimus, there's a story-related item that is a bag of coins. It does nothing, but it may be used to imply that Onesimus stole money on his quest for freedom. Crab transformation. An unused graphic in Jill is this strange crab-looking thing. It has some vestigial functionality that makes it similar to other transformation abilities, but it does nothing. It's possible a crab transformation was planned, but scrapped due to time constraints. Or, as the crab enemy's only special ability in-game is the ability to climb up and down vines, it's possible it was scrapped for being redundant, as it doesn't really add anything Jill or another transformation couldn't do already. Rotating knives. Amongst Jill's unused graphics are graphics for various rotations of the throwing knife. In-game, the knives do not rotate at all, so maybe this was another scrapped idea. Balloons. I don't really have any theories on what these could have been used for. It looks vaguely like a balloon, but also not quite. If you have an idea what these might have been, comment below. Beta tiles. Here is what I assume are the beta tiles to several stone textures in the game. A few of these are used in-game, but most aren't. Unused balls. There are a few variations to the bouncing balls in Jill, which are unused. This is also a good time to mention a ball-specific glitch which can happen. In episode 3, on this blue level, there's this crazy oscillating ball in this cramped little room here. On a blue moon, this ball can actually escape this room, allowing it to ricochet around in the starting area. If you hang out in the starting area long enough, it will eventually happen, but it's inconsistent. Lizardman front. The Lizardman has an unused front sprite which looks hilarious. It was probably going to be used in a turning animation, but probably looked a little too ridiculous to use, so they scrapped it. It's also strange that the Lizardmen have a slightly different style than most other graphics in Jill. It doesn't quite fit the vibe of everything else for some reason. The Land of Eternal Weirdness. Here, we must abandon all facts and reason. We shed our immortal coils and enter the realm of wild conjuncture and far-fetched headcanons. We have entered the Land of Eternal Weirdness. Personalized copies. I swear this is a real thing. Similar to the idea that copies of Mario 64 are personalized, each one having unique features, also prime example of the Mandela effect, this refers to the idea that there are different versions of the Jill trilogy that have subtle differences. Here I have to note that the copy of Jill that I have now is not the copy that I had growing up, nor is it the copy that one can download from GOG. My copy of Jill was bought from Epic Mega Games when I was in high school, shortly before they stopped selling their old games. This was somewhere in maybe the late 2000s. It was bought for me 1 year as a gift to replace the original copies which were lost when I was little. So the copy I have now came from a single orange floppy disk, while our original copies of Jill came from 3 separate black floppies. The main differences I can remember from the version I have now and those black copies I used to have are as follows. Episode 3, Level 3. I remember there being a gem above this chain which would unlock a block over here. Episode 3, Level 6. I remember the bottom of this level being littered with frogs. This gate would be used to block them while you retrieve this key up here. While you can get frogs to follow you down here, I remember frogs being down here upon starting the level. Honestly, I'm glad this isn't in the final version of Jill because it made the game kind of frustrating. Episode 3, Level 11. I remember something down here above this spike pit. I think it was an apple, but I'm not sure. There may have been other things, but these are the only concrete memories that stand out. Interestingly, they're all from Episode 3. There are definitely more than one revision of Jill, but I'm not aware of any of them containing these specific differences. So I believe those black floppies that I used to have were different in some way. Some of the levels just look like something should be there. If you remember something kind of like this in your copy of Jill, let me know in the comments. Who is Arg? Episode 1 features a level called Arg's Dungeon. Arg is never shown or described. We are simply allowed to explore their dungeon. A named character in Jill is kind of unusual. Besides Jill, no other characters have a name. Not even the prince, unless you want to canonize his name as Paul. But that kind of feels like it's cheating. The manual jokes about the identity of Arg, reading, "Who is Arg? Take your pick. A. Elvis in disguise. B. What you say when you can't complete the level. C. Jill's boyfriend. D. One of the background puppets in Sesame Street." When I Google Arg Muppet, I just keep running into these 2 images. I guess we'll never know who Arg is. Unless it's a character from another Epic Mega Game title maybe? That's possible. It's also possible that the manual is just talking more nonsense. If you know who Arg is, let me know in the comments. Tim Sweeney's last game. Yes, that Tim Sweeney, the dancing pro who is currently the CEO of the company known for Fortnite. Yes, Epic Mega Games is the company that became Epic. The company known for Fortnite, for the Unreal Engine, for the Epic Game Store, etc, etc. Okay, now, we are going to ignore the fact that I used a Wikipedia fact at the bottom of my Iceberg meme, and we're going to take a moment to appreciate Tim's game design style. Wikipedia describes Jill as the last game Tim directly designed, and that's honestly kind of a shame. There's definitely a shared vibe between Jill and another of Tim's games, ZZT. The level design in both games kinda has a raw, chaotic construction, kinda similar to the madness you find on random Mario Maker levels. His level design philosophy feels like an idea applied directly to a canvas, if that makes any sense. It kinda invests fully in fun rather than trying to paint an illusion of some real-world space, which is probably a product of the limited technology of the day, but it's still kind of nice to point out. Honestly, it would be kinda neat to see another game designed by Tim, if Jill was indeed his last. It's not really like he's busy or anything, being a CEO and all. Surely he can find some time between shitposts about the metaverse. And complaining about Valve banning NFTs. Just kidding, Tim. Oh, I mean, potential metaverse god. But seriously, maybe take a break from Twitter now and then. Skulls are demonic cameras. In-game, there's these skulls which kind of oogle Jill as she walks by, with these flashing red eyes. They don't really seem to have a purpose though, other than just add flavor. The manual has this to say about them. What does the giant skull do? Actually, that skull is a guardian set up by the witch doctor who owns this hut. The skull takes a visual of Jill, which will be sent by the latest in electronic mail technology to the demon's hideout. More amusing nonsense from the manual. It all makes sense now. Beneath Heck. Jill Goes Underground has some strangely similar ideas to Dante's Inferno, Purgatoria, and Paradisia. In these books, Dante describes how the human world, hell, purgatory, and heavens are organized through terms an ordinary mortal could understand. It describes hell as a cave deep in the earth which contains many layers. Of course, at the very bottom of hell, we have Satan, and after Satan is a path that goes through the center of the earth back up to the earth's surface, opposite to the entrance of hell. Here, the islands of purgatory can be found. How does this relate to Jill? Probably not at all. But I wonder if this served as a minor inspiration for this episode. Not very often do you hear of voyages to hell that keep going deeper below hell. The ending of episode 2, where you are collecting jump boosts, has a similar vibe to how Dante experienced a strange inversion of gravity in that passage that connects hell to purgatory. If this is the inspiration for Jill Goes Underground, this might also mean that Jill Saves the Prince takes place in a purgatory? Like, this may suggest that the prince is some soul in purgatory that Jill has to save? However, all of this is stupid nonsense, and that's why it's at the bottom. Winners don't lose frogs. This one's kind of driving me crazy. I feel like this is an in-joke, and I'm just not in the loop. Near the start of the Land of Eternal Weirdness, there's this inscription that reads, "Winners don't lose frogs." What is this referring to? Is this a reference to another game? Is this more nonsense? I don't know. It's not really like you can lose these frogs here because they're trapped in a little prison. Filled with confusion, I took to the internet to see if I could discover the truth. Some fan sites repeat this slogan, but are they in on the joke, or are they merely repeating nonsense that has absolutely no meaning? Thankfully, I'm not the only one asking questions here, because we have Tony, a contributor to the Easter Egg Archive, writing, "Check out this second hidden file. It has nothing in it except for the text, 'Winners don't lose frogs.'" Huh. And then at the bottom we have Odin, Master of Madness, responding, "Winners don't lose frogs" is a reference to the 1992 Epic Megagames game Jill of the Jungle. One of the weapons that Jill could wield is a leapfrogging frog that would venture out in front of Jill, kill enemies on contact, and return back to Jill. The frog could get stuck inside the level. It wasn't a glitch, it was just that the frog could leap into a hole or an obstruction and it could not leap out. The text itself, "Winners don't lose frogs," is on a number of information panels in the game, around the area where the frogs are first available. A reminder not to launch the frog where one couldn't retrieve it again. 20 out of 32 people found this comment helpful. Alright, straight up, there are probably like 3 people on the face of this planet who know how strange this response is, because everything about it is wrong. I know this never happens on the internet, but in this case, Odin is talking absolute nonsense. And honestly, I'm all for it. Shout out to Odin, I guess, if you ever watch this. I fully support this insane response. Good job. Keep it up.